Welcome to the WPPM podcast. My name is Lina and I'm the host of today's episode. I have a Bachelor in Management of Renewable Energies and I'm currently studying the 2-year Wind Power Master Program here on Campus Scotland. Today's topic is early stage development and I'm happy to welcome Gabriella Nilsson as our guest for today's episode. So hello and welcome, Gabriella.
Thank you. Hello.
Gabriella also studied at Uppsala University and holds a master in physics. She's specialized in meteorology and has experience working as a wind analyst and a consultant in various phases of wind power projects. Today, Gabriella is head of wind project development at BayWa RE in the Nordics. BayWa RE is a leading renewable energy developer, service provider, distributor, and energy solution provider. And I'm very happy about the opportunity today to talk to you, Gabriella. And before we start with the topics, would you like to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background and your way into the industry?
Yeah, sure. I think you pretty much covered it, but yeah, that's right. So I studied to become a meteorologist, and then I worked at SMHI for some years with the weather forecasts. And then I got a little bit bored, so I entered into the wind industry started to work with as a wind analyst, because there are quite a few meteorologists working as wind analysts. It's a good market and a good background since wind power is pretty much boundary meteorology. So yeah. And so that's how I started working. And then as a consultant, you tend to work with what the clients need at the time. So that's why I worked also with project development. I worked with EPC and a lot of due diligences, technical due diligence, commercial due diligence. Yeah, pretty much a little bit of everything. And a year ago, I started at BayWa.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. So now moving on to today's first question. As an introduction to the topic, could you share what are the typical topics and tasks considered as early stage development?
Since we are not landowners ourselves, we need the land. So we put a lot of energy into leasing land. There are 2 people in my team working full-time, just contacting landowners and working them to get the land lease agreement signed. And this could be a pretty long process, a lot of communication, a lot of travels, meeting people. And then when we have signed the land lease agreements, then we move on into project development, which is in Sweden it's done according to law. So there's public hearing, and then you go into applying for the environmental permit. And if we get it, then my part of the project is done, and I hand it over to the EPC department in our...
Sounds very structured.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds structured, but it's a long process.
Yeah. Okay. You already started covering my next question. It's about the stakeholders. So who are the crucial stakeholders at an early stage of a project?
Well, that would be the landowners. Yeah. Since, a lot of projects, large parts of Sweden has been screened for potential projects. So that is leaving the little bit... the lands that are a little bit harder, and that could mean areas with many landowners, like each property is really small. Mm. So that could mean that we would actually in one project have to handle like 50 landowners. So yeah, it's a lot of communication with people and different people.
Sounds like a challenge.
Yes, but yeah, it's fun also, but definitely a challenge. You have to be a people person.
Okay, yeah. Next question. In your lecture you gave to us, you shared that the majority of projects fail in this initial stage. What are the main reasons that projects fail and are not investigated further?
when we screen for projects, of course, we cut out the hard stops, and then we screen a little bit more, and then it could be the vicinity to grid, for example. It could be like if there is reindeer industry there. That could be a definite challenge. And then you have to go through all the referrals, like, for example, sending referrals to the Swedish Armed Forces. That is also quite challenging. We don't get, if we get an answer or if we get a negative answer, we don't get a reason why. There's no way for us to communicate and ask, why did you say no? Or for example. And then there's the veto from the municipality. They can say no to the project at any time during the project development, and they don't have to give any reason. That's the law.
A lot of parties involved in the process.
Definitely. And then, of course, there's the county administrative board. If we come to that, if we hand in the environmental application, of course, it's tried by the county administrative board like a first. They try it first, so they can also say no, of course.
On the other hand, to have a more positive approach to it, what are characteristics of a promising project?
So it's where you don't have a lot of other interests, like reindeer. No reindeer husbandry. No, the Swedish Armed Forces would say yes. You don't have a lot of public opponents and positive municipality. So the municipalities, they usually have pointed out areas where they would say yes, and sometimes also areas where they would say no, and sometimes they would just say nothing. So that would be a good project. And then there's the cost-driven parameters, like, for example, vicinity to grid. Not too complex terrain, because then it would be expensive to build roads, for example. So we have the environmental aspects and then the cost driving parameters.
Now I would also like to learn more about your position. What is your current role and what are your responsibilities within your team?
Well, I'm managing a team of 14. They are either site securing managers, project developers, project managers, or they're also experts like wind analysts or nature value experts, for example, in Sweden and Finland. So my responsibility is to find the projects, to get them to find the projects or us to find the projects, and move the projects forward to gain environmental permit. But on day-to-day business, it's not that much projects actually for me. It's more managing people and taking responsibility for all types of questions that would come up.
Having the overview of everything.
And also like internal processes. There might be a new system for time reporting or whatever. So yes, administrative stuff that I would be responsible for.
Okay, good. Before we end the episode, we have a few questions we ask all our guests. So first, what are the current hot trends in the wind industry right now?
The current trends, I'm thinking if we should go a few years back, the difference between now and then would be whenever we are searching for potential projects, we always have the hybrid solutions in the back of our heads. So if you would find a good site, maybe it's not suitable for wind power, maybe the landowner isn't interested in wind power, we would look into, is it good for PV? Is it good for batteries? Is it good for PV and batteries? So definitely always having other energy solutions in the back of our mind. So that would be one trend. And another trend, as for project development, it has to do with compensation to landowners. It's a political thing. it's like a suggestion from the government a few years back that has to do with how to compensate them financially. And not to do it in the way we do now, so that would be more beneficial for the municipalities. But it hasn't come through yet, so everyone is waiting for that. So we have that in a lot of conversations, like, are we going to take that into account now, or are we going to wait for the final political decision?
Then the next question, would you like to say something to the ones who are students within wind power now?
I would say it's still a hot market, definitely. Constantly searching for talented people. It's a good market for young people, or people, you don't have to be young, but I mean, that recently graduated. I would say there are definitely jobs to be found.
That's very nice to hear.
So you picked the right program to study.
And last questions, do you have any suggestions for interesting topics to write a thesis on?
Well, not really from my point of view, working with project development, but I was also a wind analyst, and I know that you have here in your department, you have people working with wind resource as well, and that is constantly, of course, something that needs to further be developed, and there are interesting topics definitely to lessen the losses and uncertainties in the wind analysis.
Great. Thank you very much for your time and your valuable insights. I greatly appreciate talking to you and hear about your experiences. Thank you.
Well, thank you.